All right, this is a throwback video from probably last year, year before last. I did this sign for someone for their father-in-law for Christmas. It goes on his farm. But here I'm carving out a bird that he wanted on the top of the sign here with my Dremel tool. Took a little while to do it, but this is what he wanted on the top of the sign. And here I'm going to start vinyl lettering. I cut these out on my machine and fixing to make the template for me to spray paint over the vinyl letters. This board I'm using is a piece of plywood with trim around it, stained in Jacobean stain. Right here, just peeling back the back paper off the vinyl letters takes a little while, and kind of gotta have a lot of patience with this stuff. But like I said, my dad taught me how to do this stuff, his sign business in Augusta, Georgia. So didn't at the time think it would come into play anytime down the road, but now I'm doing stuff like this from time to time, making some stencil letters and signs and things. Not as much signs as I am like wooden flags that I would put these stencils on, different lettering, maybe in memorial of an officer, fallen officer, or just different things on a flag. Sometimes it's people's names or whatever. But this takes a little bit to get the backing off this paper. Sometimes it wants to stick to the paper, depending. A lot of times it has to do with what the temperature is in my shop as well, to where this peels off easy or not. But just try to flip it over. The next thing is trying to get the alignment right, so to be like in the middle of the board and not the one side or the other. Usually you can lay this down and pull it back up until you do this part right here. Once you do all this right here, if you've got it out of line, then you're gonna have a hard time pulling it up, because this stuff sticks really good. And this little squeegee, just pushing all the air bubbles out of it, getting it all nice and flat. And then I'm gonna take the contact tape off the top of it. Sometimes this gets a little tricky too, but it's not as hard as pulling the backing off the vinyl, though. This usually comes up pretty easy if you've got it nice and flat with the squeegee. Just have to pull this back. And sometimes you can reuse this little piece of film that I'm pulling off. In this case, I don't think I did, but well, maybe I did. I laid it to the side. Can't remember now. But squeezing some more air bubbles out. Try to make sure everything's nice and flat, because if you spray paint it and you got a little bit of air in it, then it's gonna bleed through. Especially on wood, it'll bleed under the stencil a little bit and cause a mess pretty much. But you want to make sure it's good and flat with no rounded corner, no air bubbles or anything. And a lot of times on things that I do stencils like this, I'll use some Easy Tack spray and spray the Easy Tack on the surface first, and then lay this down. This is mostly if I'm using stencil and not vinyl that doesn't stick. But if I'm just using a regular plastic stencil, sometimes I'll spray the Easy Tack on the surface and then lay the stencil on top, and that will help seal all the openings to where you won't have any problem. But here's the final product.